Good afternoon, everybody. Merci d'être ici avec nous. As Ian said, we're at the midway point, so I want to make myself available to you guys for some questions. And right at the midway point of the season, we're 8 points where we were last year at this time. At the end of last year and going into this year, I challenged the group on internal growth from our individuals and as a team. I think we've seen a level of that for sure, and we can get into that. I'm pleased with the commitment of two-way hockey from our group, especially on the defensive side of things. So that's a step in the right direction. And if you ask Travis, he's talked about it and said it, but they're a coachable group. There's a lot of character in that room, and they want to get better. And so that's part of the growth for this team is that they're willing to be coached and to work on those daily habits. We've talked a lot about it. It's a process-driven approach with this group. We want to see incremental steps. I think laying the foundation the way that we have and with the way the coaching staff has, we feel like there's a foundation there to build off of now. Like I talked about the commitment to two-way hockey that is a great improvement from where we were last year at this time. And culture takes time to build. We can set the environment, but until the players get the chance to live it and breathe it and are held accountable to winning habits over a long period of time, that's where I think that we have an opportunity to continue to grow as a group. So.
Start with Gord in the back there.
Steve, sometimes difficult to get a full assessment when you've got players who are key to your hockey club injured. If you can you just offer an update on Linus and David Perron, Mike Camadio specifically?
Yeah, they're all progressing. Linus has been on the ice the last couple of days, so good step forward for him. David has been skating and getting closer. I don't have a specific timeline. I apologize on that for either of them. And Michael, obviously, with concussions, we want to make sure that he is fully back to full health. So he's moving in the right direction as well. But certainly, we feel like all of them are sooner rather than later. In every particular one of those injuries, when I talk about growth and a winning culture and a winning mindset, a lot of the stuff that even they're learning at their age is the commitment off ice to be able to withstand some of these injuries. And I can talk about we're a little bit better than we were from man games lost last year. We've taken a step in the right direction with all the work that we've put in on that side with the strength and conditioning and the medical. But it continues to need to get better as well. And so we'll continue to grow in that area as well.
You've investigated the defense market, I'm sure. What are you finding out there in terms of trying to make a deal?
Probably because, two things. Probably because we look at the standings and everybody seems to be in it still. It's a little more challenging, I think, for anybody to sort of make a commitment on doing one or the other at this point in time. But as far as going and making trades, I could go and explore bringing in a defenseman, and then we wouldn't have been able to see what Nick Mattenpalo could do. And I think we can all see that there's potential there. And so we have players internally that are developing through our system in Belleville that are getting a look right now. And so that's where we're at this point in time. And our depth, with all the injuries, the depth's hanging in there. We've had players come up and play higher in the lineup and thrust into some situations, and they've handled them pretty well.
What areas would you like to see be better in the second half to keep you in the mix and, of course, make the playoffs?
Every team's striving for consistency, and every team's going to go through a stretch. So we went through a stretch. We were playing some good hockey, and then we had lost our identity. We played 5 games where we just weren't there. So we're all striving for that consistency. The good teams and the ones who have been through it and know it can cut those losing streaks off a little bit sooner. And we're learning on how to do that. The good news is once this group got back to their mindset and their identity, we had a good run of successful hockey.
Hey, Steve. Just to follow up on one of the injury questions, Ullmark was obviously one of your big off-season acquisitions, and he's been in and out with injury. How do you anticipate his participation in the Four Nations upcoming? Would you still be happy with that if he's still on and off with this injury, if he comes back just before the Four Nations?
We're just excited about getting him back into our lineup. I think that's a bridge we'll cross once we get there. We just want to get him back to full health.
Just to follow up, it's Claude Giroux's birthday today. Have you had any chances to talk to him about possible
wish him happy
contract?
birthday?
I haven't seen him, but are you going to do that?
I will after the game, yeah.
Yeah, have you had a chance to talk to him about any contract extensions?
I don't think it's fair that we talk about that here. I mean, obviously Claude's an important part of our group and continues to show that he can play at this age. So, but I won't talk about contract. We're pleased to get Ridley signed when we did, and there's a process to how we're doing things that way as well.
Can you actually just speak on that Ridley Greig contract extension, what you saw in him, what made you want to sign him in for the 4-year term?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ridley epitomizes what we want in an Ottawa Senator. You know, his commitment to team play, his fierce competitiveness, and he's a young player who continues to develop. And we're excited about, and the fact that he can play anywhere in your lineup, as you've seen. He can play on our top line as a winger. You can move him around, and that's a valuable piece for us. But the character of the individual is so great, and he's a team-first guy.
Hey, Steve. There seems to be a lot of differing storylines surrounding your goaltending these days. Like Linus playing extremely well, but injured. Levy stepping up, even at the World Juniors, Nick Heaton, a lot of eyes on him. I wonder, how would you assess your goaltending depth across the organization at this point of the season?
Yeah, well, we feel comfortable with it. You know, we withstood some injuries, Linus and Sogard as well. You know, so we have some depth. It's young depth with Sogi and with Levy, but certainly Levy stepped up to the challenge at this point in time. And I think, you know, I mean, you get Linus Ullmark in here, and you know when he's in the net, that's the reason why you go out and acquire somebody like that. I think you could see around the rest of the league that that's sort of the way that it's been going. Like you platoon, if you don't have a veteran guy who's, you know, been proven, they kind of rotate through. And you know, the skill of the league now is making it harder for goaltenders. I think it's save percentage, I think, across the league is down again this year, right? So as I look at Noodles, yeah, sorry, I just caught eyes with you. Yeah, so we're comfortable with the depth. That's young depth, and they continue to develop. And both Levy and Sogi are continuing to develop and push to be regular NHL goaltenders.
Hey Steve, just sort of like every year it seems like you see examples of teams that take a step and they earn that chance for the GM to go out and add something to bolster their push towards the end of the season and in theory like the playoffs. So I just wonder for you, like what's the approach and the mindset from now until you get to trade deadline time?
Yeah, I continue to look at options, Kyle, to try and help the group out in certain ways, but also watching the group grow internally as well. As I've told you, some of the call-ups that are coming up, but certainly we'll keep an eye on it. I mean, it's nice to be having that conversation right now. We're at game 41. There's still time as we lead towards the trade deadline, but it's really nice to have those thoughts, and this group has earned that by their play and taking that first step. And it's just the initial step. We have a long way to go, but certainly if I can find a way to help out the group, I will.
Maybe just on that note, how open are you to potentially trading that first round pick this year or next, especially knowing that you won't potentially have it?
Yeah, it comes into play. I mean, we do have to pay our debt to the league in this situation. So, yeah, I mean, there's ways to do it without, you know, we'll look at all ways to be able to do that. And, you know, I don't think a first-round pick is the only way to do it.
Back row there from Party.
Yep.
You've done some trades during the summer. You've tried to make this team better, and you talked about, and the coach talked about it, making this team a little better defensively. When you look at the guys that you picked up, how do you think that they have impacted that defensive core? How good they impact on that defensive core?
It's a good question. I mean, Nick Jensen, the way that he kind of goes about things has elevated the play of a lot of people around him and the way he goes about his business off the ice. And we haven't had the chance, unfortunately, due to injury with David Perron, but these old pros that I've brought in here with some experience, I think, have helped. That would be one thing. There's, the coaching staff has implemented and held firm on the commitment to defense. And I think every player has elevated. I think the veteran players have had an impact on that. Certainly the coaching staff with their approach has had an impact on that. And where we're looking for the next step from the coaching staff, and the coaches would tell you that we wanted that foundation of defense, and now we want to create offense off of that. So that's another step that we're looking to take. But, I mean, you think about Thomas Chabot, and, you're waiting. You always think about the age of the player and if they are what they are. But Thomas Chabot at 27 years old has taken a massive step forward, and but it's commitment, it's a mindset, and it's the character of the group. I think that they need to be held accountable to playing winning hockey, and these are the habits that they take time on a daily basis over time for us to take that next step. Again, this is just the first step. We certainly know we have a long way to go.
When you think about the first step, because when you got here, this team was built on a lot of offense, a lot of talent, a lot of kids that signed to contracts to multi-years and a lot of money. You don't want them to block shots and play defense. You want them to score goals. When is that shift going to be back in, where you get these kids to play a lot more offense? I mean, to show off exactly where they are. Because I'm not saying that it's bad what you guys are doing now. I know what you're trying to do, trying to bring that team more defense structure. But is that, in your mind, stopping a bit your offense? Or is that something that we're going to see in the next half season? If they're comfortable now with their play defensively, will we see more team offense in the second part?
I think you don't want to detract from the offense, but you can't cheat for offense. I think that's what our coaches are. We need to learn how to create offense off of our good defensive structure. And we have the talent to do it, and we show it on nights. Last night was a good example where we have the talent to be able to do it. You see the talent on the power play. So I want to believe it's the evolution of this group. It's a good point that you bring up, but I think it's part of the evolution. We're not holding these guys back from trying to make plays, for sure. But I think naturally when you get into a new situation with a new coaching staff and they continue to, talk about the defensive side of it, because we have high character kids, they're listening and learning. So I think there's going to be a time where they start to understand that they can create offense. And we've seen it at times. Like there's been stretches where we've gone pretty good, but certainly when we look at winning hockey over a long period of time or trying to take that next step to become a playoff team, the defensive side of it, I think, was probably the most important.
Stay in the back there, Julian.
Right. Just to follow up to the question Callum asked about goaltending, you did mention about being comfortable with your depth. Does that mean that you may or may not be interested in getting a goalie as a stopgap before Linus comes back?
I'm comfortable with our depth, Julian. Like I don't think that would be, having Forsey and Levy and Sogard as well to be able to all come up and play. I think we're comfortable where we are.
And since mid-November, as much as there is a lot of offensive talent on the team, there has been some struggles with goal scoring. They've been near the bottom of the league in goals since mid-November. How high on the list of priorities is adding an offensive weapon ahead of the trade deadline?
Well, we'll look at everything, but certainly I feel like we have that internally. Once, when we're playing with confidence, I know it was just last night, so, but you can see when we're playing with confidence and playing with the puck, we can really create offense. So, I think it was to the earlier question about trying to balance your game out, but I think we're hoping that that's the evolution of this group on the back half, where they can continue to play responsible two-way hockey, and then find the offense and be able to make some plays.
At this point of the season, what aspect of the team do you see an improvement compared to last year or the other years?
Mostly on the defensive side of it, two-way hockey. I think the commitment to, on most nights we make it difficult for the opposition to get to areas to score, and we're still learning. Like, there's nights where we're not, but overall I think the consistency on how we've defended as a group, the commitment to it has been the biggest area of improvement.
Steve, you've touched a bit about your coaching staff, but it's Travis Green's first season. What have you thought about what he's been able to implement and work with the team so far?
Yeah, I've been pleased with. He's firm but fair with the players. He's got an open line of communication, and he cares about the players. And I think they feel comfortable that it's an open door policy with him. But he's demanding, and I think you've seen. And part of the reason when I was evaluating the coaching opportunity or the people that could come in and be the next head coach of the Ottawa Senators, he's done this in the past where he's gotten the most out of individuals, and again, playing winning hockey, hammering in on those habits on a nightly basis. I think it does take some time, and but I've been pleased with where we are at this point in time from a coaching perspective.
Just maybe a little bit about Carter Yakimchuk. Like, how close do you think he is to making this team, and is there a possibility that he can play at the end of the season?
Well, I mean, time will tell. I mean, we want him to stay focused in on what he's doing and not. The best way to develop is to commit to the team that you're on, and that's the message that I've given Carter. He continues to develop as a player and as a person and as a leader. And so. Yeah, time will tell. Like, you got to be mindful of the age, and playing in this league in any position is difficult at a young age, but especially on the defensive, playing defense. So we'll continue to monitor where he's at, and he'll have to have a big summer and then come into camp and go through the whole process again. But that's part of the growth and development of a young player.
Did you talk to him at all, by the way, after he's left off the training camp roster for the World Juniors, or in the time after that?
Yeah, a number of times, for sure. Yeah, and I'd been out there to watch him play as well.
Can I just ask you about Marilyn and what you think of him? He's kind of been thrust into the situation here and looked pretty good.
I think the differentiator with Levy is his mindset. It doesn't seem like the moment's too big for him. So he's always he's got a real calm demeanor about him, and I think that gives our group confidence and gives him confidence that he can step into these types of situations.
Is it sometimes easier, like, I don't know, if youthful innocence, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, maybe. I don't know. I never played the position, but certainly it's, there's part of it. I think, mentally preparing for a hockey game as a player is always, there's something to it, but as a goaltender, you're the last line of defense. So to have that mindset at such a young age doesn't seem to get rattled. I think that's been a differentiator for him to come in and feel comfortable.
Just to follow up on something you were saying before, just about bringing in the old pros with experience, how much of an impact do you think the missed games by David Perron and Linus Ullmark have had on both your record and even just the growth of this group to this point?
Well, they continue to be around the group, and I think the way that they go about their business helps our group. Hard to say, I mean, if Linus was in for more games, or if David was in. Certainly, I think any team would say that if you have your full roster, you're going to have a better chance of winning. So really tough to say, but I still think that they've had an impact on just their experience and being around the group. Both of them are vocal when they're in between periods and being able to help, but also in and around practice and in the weight room.
So I just want to expand a bit on the Ullmark thing and Perron, where you say sooner rather than later. In your mind, what's sooner?
Well, I think if they're putting in the work, like I know they are off the ice, I don't have a timeline on it. I just think that watching them progress over the last little while here gives me optimism that we'll see them in the near future. I guess that's still not Sorry about that.
So are we calling it week to week still?
I shouldn't have gone down this path, but certainly I feel optimistic that we're going to get them back, and they're going to have a good impact for us in the second half of the season.